I'm Lara Downes, and I'm looking forward so much to joining the Philadelphia Orchestra for performances of one of my favorite piano concertos, the wonderful Piano Concerto by Florence Price. I first encountered Price's music a long time ago, I think about 15 years ago. I found one piece of hers. The moment I touched those notes, I just fell in love with her music. And the moment I played it for audiences, they fell in love with the music. And for a long time, that's all I had for a very good reason, which is that at that point, there was hardly any of her music that had been published. When she died in the 1950s, most of her music was left behind in her abandoned summer house in an attic, the roof of which disintegrated in boxes that were open to the elements. In 2009, a young couple bought this house to renovate it and by some miracle did not toss these boxes into a dumpster, but instead saw the signature, researched Florence Price, and took all of this stuff down to the library at the University of Arkansas. And at that point, I started, with the help of some colleagues, musicologist Michael Cooper, going through those boxes and finding the music. And it's been just an amazing journey of discovery. Florence Price, as a musician and as a human being, is just such a fascinating figure. She really represents the time in which she lived. She was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, migrated north to Chicago in the 1920s, became a part of this great migration. And she became a central figure there. She was prolific, she was ambitious. She did make history in 1933. The Chicago Symphony Orchestra played her first symphony, and that was the first time that a major American orchestra had played music by a Black woman. So that's the moment that we can pinpoint. But I think that her entire life was spent really trying to explore possibility and potential and developing this American sound that is so authentic because she was coming into classical music at this sort of post Dvorak, late romantic moment. But into that, she brought her own heritage, the sound of her own tradition, this deeply nostalgic and emotionally resonant African American sound. And those two things coalesced and coexist in her work. The first time I played this concerto was in 2018. And at that time, we had a reconstructed score that had been made from a two piano manuscript that was found in the boxes in the attic. And then I think about a year or two later, the original orchestra parts did turn up as well. So it's been a process of putting this piece back together. And I've been so fortunate to bring it to some of our great American orchestras and to work with musicians and conductors who are all committed to this restoration project. It's such a uniquely exciting piece. Every time I play it, there's this sort of jolt of recognition and excitement and joy in the response from an audience. It travels everything. It starts with this very post Dvorak kind of lush, romantic, grand opening. And then the middle movement is extremely intimate and affectionate. And then the piece explodes into a juba dance, which is a dance that was brought by enslaved people to the Carolinas. And that, to me, that's the moment where Florence Price is reminding us who she is and where she comes from and what her music needs to say. And that is also the moment when everyone in the audience starts tapping their feet and getting happy because it's just this joyful finale to this incredible piece. I'm thrilled to bring this piece to the Philadelphia Orchestra. The orchestra has this beautiful track record of working with Price's music. They've recorded the symphonies, the violin concertos. I think we share this deep love of her sound and her story, and the recordings that they've made are phenomenal and have brought such important and well-deserved recognition to this composer and her music. I think when you come to a piece that doesn't have a history behind it of, recordings and interpretations. I mean, as a pianist, most of the music that I play has centuries behind it of traditions and conventions. This piece, you have to understand her language. And somehow, instinctively, I think I do. I think her language is just made up of her life experience and of the American era in which she lived. It has this sense of, still this connection to the old world, because the old world at that time, Europe represented the history of concert music and this training that she had received at the New England Conservatory from George Chadwick. But also it reflects the changes in American life, the migration that was happening, the technology that was developing so that people were moving faster and meeting each other in different ways. And then too, this connection of hers to her heritage and this desire to be true to herself. I think about the fact that in the time when she was working, obviously the doors of the establishment were closed to her as a Black woman. She could have taken the easy way around that, and she could have written everything in this European post-romantic vein. But instead, to include the sounds of her own history, of her own lineage, that I think is a very brave statement of authenticity and individuality. And I think that's the thing that translates itself so clearly to our ears and our hearts.